Okay.
Just give it a few minutes, let people kind of populate this thing, and then we can do the introduction stuff, Dave.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But no, it's you know, my son said it's been raining out here like every day for like the last 10 days. So everything's nice and green. And you know, I've talked to quite a few locals that know that I'm coming out here and said that they feel like there's good bird numbers. So we're going to kind of travel all over the state and hopefully, you know, get an opportunity to harvest a lot of different stuff, and hopefully dogs get a lot of good experience, and looking forward to it.
Well, good.
When are you heading out, Glenn?
I'm not headed to Montana. I'm headed to Maine the end of the month.
Right.
So, but I talked to a buddy of mine who's on the Madison today. He's been there for a month, and he was saying about all the rain they had. And so
Hopefully we're gonna do a little fly fishing too.
Those poor fly fishermen are whining, aren't they?
you know they always whine, just like bird hunters.
It's just like people in general. The only thing people hate more than change is the status quo.
Exactly.
Well, you know why? You know what month farmers hate the worst, right?
Anyone that ends in Y.
Nope. February. They only got 28 days to bitch.
What do you got there, Ronnie? Is that a Miller Lite and one of
Oh
those?
yeah, the big bottle, the big.
Those are
aluminum
nice. I like those
like a baseball game.
They go down like a.
What?
It's only my second one today too. I was running. I had to get a haircut. Got my eyebrows plucked. Got my nose hairs waxed out of them.
Oh. Ouch.
That sounds awful.
I know, but the girl that cuts my hair is really hot, and she likes to do it to me. I feel like it's a little. Oh,
you gotta ever wax your back.
We're talking about it.
My brother, who is literally the toughest person I know, literally the toughest person I know, is really hairy, and he was getting a laser treatment done on his back to get the hair off, and he went through about 6 treatments and he couldn't do it anymore. It hurt so bad. He's like, it was like somebody was taking a rubber band about this big and pulling it back about 18 inches and just smacking him every time they would do it.
This girl takes these little flat toothpicks about 3 inches long, puts it in this goo, puts it in your nose, and lets it dry, then puts another one in this nostril, and then she'll do a little, because I got like one eyebrow, right?
You got a unibrow.
One monobrow. So she's like, we got to fix this up. And so she puts this little paste on here, and I'm like, I'm screaming like a baby. She does it here where my hairline goes to my eye. And then when this dries, she just reaches on that popsicle stick and goes, whack.
Oh, no. Oh, I can feel that. Nope.
But I'm not that old guy you see in the restaurant with those nose hairs coming out. You know,
Hey, I give you credit. I just spend a lot of time with this little machine that goes up there and does it, and same with my ears and stuff like that. I don't want to be that old man.
Does my ears. She does. She wants to do everything, and I'm like, no. I don't think I can take it. Just keep it from the neck up.
Be a Brazilian.
She would be willing.
Well, I'd scar for life.
I probably would. That's not fair to do to anyone. God, well, that's really an interesting live conversation so far.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It's right on topic here.
I had the dogs all staked out behind my truck here, and of course I used one stake out this morning in South Dakota, and of course I left it there. You know.
Oh no,
dummy!
Seriously?
Yes. So I got to go to the hardware store tomorrow out here and see if I can find a stake to stake the dogs out. And but there's one of the dogs knocked over their food bowl, and there's a magpie which, the kids out here call them poor man's pheasants. They got that big long tail on and stuff like that. Those things they're ballsy, man. I mean, they're just going right near the dogs, and the dogs are grabbing the food out from under. It's like, I can't believe those things do that, but the dogs just sit there pointing them and stuff. And
it looked like one of those gray jays that we saw up in Newfoundland.
Yeah, they look similar to that. Yeah, they're probably in the same family.
Yeah. All right, we got 40 people on, 36 people on now, so we could probably get underway a little bit. We're 6 minutes in here, and
Brent,
hopefully
there's
some
a
more
farm store out towards I think it's Spring Hill Road.
Okay.
That would probably be good. But
Okay.
I saw a deal. Maybe we should save this for the podcast. At the Gladwin event, guy got bunt cake pans with the hole in the center.
Yeah.
Drives his steak out through the center, and dogs never tip water. And
that's a great idea. I've seen that done before, and I just use steak out so rarely. I mean, usually I just but I've got Dave's dog and that other dog out there, and I just I just don't want to let dogs loose. I mean, I'm probably a little too laissez-faire with my dogs, and
Yeah.
But that was a cool idea.
That's a great idea.
So I bought 2 bunt cake pans at Walmart the other day for $6.94 a piece or something. So.
Did you make a bunt cake before you put a hole in them?
No, the hole's already there.
Oh,
that's the point of the bunt cake. Right?
Oh, I got yeah. My bad. Hey, that reminds
me. You have to excuse our friend. He's a little slow.
I am a little slow. Did you guys listen to the Meat Eater podcast when I was on it?
It's on my.
That's the whole thing. Yeah.
Well, the main guest was an archaeologist that studies dire wolves and dog introduction historically, like 20,000 years ago and all that kind of stuff. Really interesting. I'm going to have her on my podcast. And about halfway through the interview, she's got the letter S on a little necklace on her right here. And Steve says, "Angela, what's the S for?" She goes, "Oh, it's my daughter's name, Scout." And I said, "Oh, you mean movie To Kill a Mockingbird?" And Steve goes, "It's a book, Ron."
Well, let's go.
I sent Steve a video the other day of that blue grouse that my son was up hiking the mountains, and he found this big giant blue grouse, and it's walking around these pines, which are probably fir trees or something like that. I sent it to Steve, and Steve texted me back and said, "Tell your son that those aren't pines, those are spruce." Like, hey, we're from Michigan. If it's a conifer, it's a spruce tree. It's a pine. I mean, we call it pines.
Right. I'm gonna close my door. Keep talking.
All right, when Ron gets back here, we'll get rolling. How's everyone doing out there? We got a lot. We got kind of a good smattering of people. We got Duluth. Ryan's on there. I don't know where he's at in his trip, but says from Oklahoma still. I don't know if he's still down there.
So we're not live yet?
Oh yeah, we're live.
Oh, right.
Oh yeah. We got people from the Northeast, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Boise, Idaho, Long Island. Probably not a.
Let's do it.
There's a few from out your way, Todd. So that's good.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway, well, everyone, welcome to the Pyke RGS Birds and Brew live here in August 2023. Man, I can't believe we're at the end of August already. September's right around the corner. And I know Brent and I are looking forward to it because we're gonna be grouse hunting in 2 days here, so it's gonna be pretty sweet. So hopefully everyone else is looking forward to their seasons coming up here. On the call tonight, we've got Ron Boehm, the infamous Hunting Dog Podcast, Brent Pyke. We've got Todd Waldron of Rough Grouse Society, and he's the what's your title, Todd?
I am Northeast Forest Conservation Director, Dave. So I work on habitat and partnerships up here in New England. Yep.
Okay.
Great to be
I just
here.
wanted to make sure I got your title right. I knew you were a forest. I just didn't know exactly what the title was.
Yeah.
And then we've got
nailed it.
Yep. Okay, and then we've got Glenn Blackwood, who is the RGS Development Director. Is that
Director of Development for
Director of Development?
Great Lakes states.
Okay. So yeah, we're gonna just hopefully hear from Todd, kind of get an update on what's happening up in that northeast region of the country, where I know it seems like we've got a lot of people on here already from that region. So hopefully they're here to learn a little bit about what's going on, and yeah, just kind of see what's happening around the rest of the country. And then later we do have our tailgate lunch giveaway. So we're going to draw a name for that tonight. And then we will also have some trivia a little bit later for $100 Pyke gift card. So make sure you stick around and wait for that. That's always a fun one when Ron comes up with a question that half of us don't know the answer to. So
none of you will know the answer.
None of us will know the answer. So
right.
Yeah, let's kick off with Todd and just kind of get an update there. And then yeah, again, if you got questions, pop them over in the chat, and I'll relay those to Todd as we go along here. But we'll let him kind of give his update, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sounds good, Dave and Brent. Thank you, Dave, Ronnie, and Glenn. It's great to be here. We appreciate Pyke Gear's support for RGS and our habitat mission. So it's awesome. And yeah, I'm in the northeast region of the U.S. It's a grousey area for folks that are outside. Maybe you're in the Midwest or the Alps, down the southern Alps, but we've got 50 million acres of forest up here in New England and New York. And so what I do is I work on habitat projects across New York State, over into Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. What a great time of year, right? I mean, we're coming into hunting season, like you said. September's rolling around. Bird seasons are opening up in 4 or 5 weeks. So like up here, Maine openers like September 30th, I think. New Hampshire's around the same time, October 1st or so. Vermont's the last weekend of September. New York is October 1 for grouse. And as a matter of fact, New York has, like in the northern zone, an early grouse opener of September 20th. So if you're up in the Adirondack region where I am, near Lake Placid, Lake George, and farther north to the Canadian border, the bird season's only like 3 weeks away, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, hunting season's coming up. We have some great chapters. They're killing it with events, banquets, everything like that. Glad to chat about that, and happy to talk about, some of the habitat we're working on from Maine over into Vermont and across into the Adirondack region.
Hey, Todd, when I was over in that area, we were hunting some, I don't want to say the term wrong. Is it forest paper or paperland? The companies who own, is that still a big, is that on the upswing, the downswing? What is with the paper companies? I mean, not what's with it, but a little explanation of that.
Yeah, Ronnie, that's a great question. And so paper companies have a long history in the Northeast, and specifically in Maine and in the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont and up into northern New Hampshire, up around Pittsburgh, north of the Whites and over into the Adirondacks. And what's happened over time is there's kind of been this shift from the paper companies owning the lands themselves to selling to like long-term timber managers that are like, they're called TIMOs, but they're long-term investors that buy timberland, hold it, grow the trees. And they're like pension funds, insurance companies and stuff like that. And so that's really a pretty core part of the conservation scene in the Northeast. We have a lot of public lands here in the Adirondacks where we have 3 million acres of state lands. But like if you go over into Maine, probably 80% of the land is privately owned, and there's this wonderful partnership, social license to allow for public access. Like last week, I was over in Millinocket, Maine, kind of on the edge of the North Maine woods. And there's this road called the Golden Road, and it's a logging road that goes about 100 miles over to Quebec. And, paper companies built that. And there's always been this legacy of public use on the lands over there. And there still is, so like you can get a day pass into North Maine woods. You can camp in there. There's like 3 million acres. It's incredible. There's covers. I kicked up some broods while I was over there last week. And, there's just like unbelievable kind of resource there in Maine. And, similarly across, Vermont in the northeast corners called the Kingdom, northern New Hampshire, and the northern Adirondack region. So there's still, large landholders like that are really key to habitat and success. And there's working forests. So these are forests some of these might be protected through a conservation easement, which protects against like development and changes in land use, but still allows for logging and forestry and hunting and stuff like that. So there's places like the Santa Clara easement tract and the Adirondacks. It's 100,000 acres that Malpas timberland zones. And so, yeah, it's, it's a big part of the fabric, and they're a big part of the partnership equation for the work that we do for RGS here in the region.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I know up in the UP now, I know Brent hunts there more than I do, and maybe Glenn does, but I know in the UP of Michigan, we'll see paper land, but it seemed like that part where I was up in the Adirondacks and I was up in Maine, it was like, paper companies that I don't I've known some of the names, but it was amazing how much land was up there. And it's like, is that on a state map that says you can go here, or do you have to do a little research? You know what I mean? Because
you can pick some of that up on
a map. It'd be like, oh, Warehouser. Oh, it better not go on it. No, you better go on it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can some of those onyx layers. We'll pick some of that up in Maine, for instance, and in the Adirondacks as well. But absolutely, it's like, coming home from Maine, I was up in Moosehead last week, and driving back over to New York is equivalent to, hopping in a truck in Ironwood, Michigan and going down to Detroit. You pack a lunch because it's 600 miles.
Yeah.
And, it's like going across the UP. That's the vastness of the forest. And I think what's interesting is, when people think of the Northeast, you're thinking of New York and Boston and Connecticut and all the metro areas. And they're all there, and that's where everybody lives. But you just get a little bit north of there into the northern forest. And, that area I was in Maine is just as wild as any place in the UP or northern Minnesota that you're going to find. It's amazing.
That's pretty cool.
One person said a question. Is there ever concern of those lands getting sold off to another private owner where the public loses access? Is there some sort of like agreement with the state that land will always be accessible to public use?
That's a great question, Dave. And there's a group in Maine that really tracks that pretty hard on the access piece. It's I think it's called High Peaks Alliance, and I think his name is Brent West, maybe. And I talked to him a couple of years ago. He's a really great dude, and he's done some conservation work. And he hunted woodcock with Ryan Callahan when Meat Eater was over there. And
that was a great episode.
So it's the same guy, right? Yep, same guy. Really cool. And the interesting thing is, the short answer is I think that access is on everybody's mind. So like anytime there's change like that, there's so much privately held land in Maine, and the paper companies have been good neighbors all these years, so they've allowed for public access. They've managed that habitat, and I think that as ownerships change, there's always that question of uncertainty, right? And what's going to happen either with management or with the access piece. So I think like in Maine, there's a lot of groups that are working on that really diligently. And they're all over that. And they're working hard to keep that access open because, absolutely. One change in ownership, could on a major piece like that, or, in the North Maine woods, where there's 3 million acres, that could impact both access and the habitat quality. But, they've managed it well. I think, those states understand the importance of maintaining good relationships with those neighbors, with those landowners. And, I think there's a delicate balance there of everybody coming out of that pretty well. So like you have a lot of win-win situations where, either through working forest easements with, like the Forest Society up in Maine or Nature Conservancy on some of their properties up there. They've been able to thread that needle pretty well. But yeah, absolutely. We're still, every time there's a transaction or a sale like that, it's on everybody's
Yeah, a
mind.
little bit of scary situation. What could happen?
Yep.
Yeah, especially like you said, if you get private investor groups come in, I mean, they've got, hundreds of millions of dollars to throw around. They could lock that up real quick on people.
Mhm. Yep, definitely. Definitely.
Now, is that similar is there similar type land ownership elsewhere in the Northeast, or is it mostly just Maine for that stuff?
Well, what happens is it's really interesting, Dave, because like the majority of the Northeast, so the 50 million acres, let's say 40 million of it's privately owned. So 8 out of every 10 acres is going to be a private landowner. And I would say from the number standpoint, most of those landowners are just family landowners like us. Like maybe you have your woodlot. My family has a 46-acre woodlot in the Adirondacks. A lot of pieces are a lot smaller than that. So you kind of have a mix, and it's going to depend on the area. But broad sweep of the brush is the further north you go into the northern forest, the larger the land holdings. So maybe that's kind of similar to what you see in the Yup or up in northern Minnesota. I think it kind of is similar. There's a lot of parallels with the land ownership. So, you end up with, as you get down kind of farther out of into the northern Alps and out of the northern forest region, you get a lot more, farms. You get like Vermont's a farm state. The Hudson River Valley of New York is similar. There's orchards, there's farms, there's woodlots. So it varies. And, the Northeast is pretty diverse in both the forest type covers and the ownerships. And it varies from state to state. But, we range from, spruce fir and pines and, down into like oak hickory kind of types at the farther south you go in the region. So yeah, there's kind of a little bit of everything.
Okay.
Todd, do you find any birds I mean, that's a weird question, I guess. What kind of birds do you find or bird numbers do you find in some of those hickories? I've never hunted that type of stuff before. Do you find many birds in that type of stuff?
Brent, I mean, there's some birds, like you get down into the Catskill region and like we're working habitat projects on partridge run WMA wildlife management area in what's called the Helderberg region outside of Albany, New York. There's definitely birds there. I mean, I think the farther north you go, you get into like, spruce forest, you get into more aspen and birch, you get into like the northern hardwoods. The bird numbers in western Maine and northern New York are really good. The further you go south, probably relatively lighter than what you would see up farther north. But yeah, I mean, I've kicked up birds in a lot of different places, and oak hickory. You just got to find the covers where they're going to be. But there's birds all over. But in general, the farther north you go, the better opportunity you get here in the Northeast. Is that how it is in the Midwest too, or?
I mean, I think people spend a lot of time hunting aspen, and I mean, there's clearly birds in the aspen cuts, but the more I learn about grouse, the less I know about grouse. and I've really changed what I hunt in the last 10 years a lot. I hunt stuff. I mean, I'll show people stuff that I hunt. And they're like, "There's birds in there." I'm like, "Yeah." There's not very many people in them either. I don't want to get too specific on what I hunt, but I mean, I would just tell people, don't get so hung up on aspen. I mean, aspen, I think is a critical component for brood rearing and for a lot of things, but, hunt some of that ancillary cover next to aspen cuts that, maybe has some stem density or has some mass production or has, some openings. And I mean, there's a lot of different ways to kill grouse. And if I know for myself personally, I spent way too many times walking my own boot tracks, and the more I've diversified, what I look for in cover in different cover types, the more successful I've been as a grouse hunter. I think that, that's something that a lot of people really struggle with is, they get the blinders on. I got to be in an 8 to 12-year-old aspen cut. And, it's like, what you got to look for those 8 to 12-year-old aspen cuts is the stem density. And then take what you learned there and say, all right, can I find a 40-year-old aspen cut that might have the same stem density? And I'm not talking about big giant aspens with that stem density. I'm talking about, what's the undergrowth component? Is it hazelbrush? Is it wild raspberry? Sometimes that, there's enough overhead cover for birds early in the season and that stuff. I think that, people could do themselves a huge favor by just hunting some stuff that you would never, ever think about hunting. Tom Prodzik, who is, probably one of the most famous grouse hunters in Michigan. That guy would kill 100 grouse a year for, I don't know what, 40 years, Glenn. The guy was incredible. He's killed more grouse than probably most humans could ever even think of seeing. And he told a friend of mine one time, he's like, when you go grouse hunting, go hunt a spot that you would never, ever hunt and just walk it and see how many birds you move. And sure enough, you hunt some spots like that, and, you're not going to find the numbers that you do in good spots, but grouse live in a lot of weird spots. Don't get hung up in your own boot tracks and just because you read something someplace. We're going to do some grouse hunting out here in Montana. And my son's been out here for a year, and he killed a lot of grouse last year, just walking logging trails, without a dog, just, and he'd see the birds and he'd go up there and flush them and whack them. And, it's like, wow, and so we're looking forward to kind of finding out, what are they like in Montana? I will learn something out here that will extrapolate into better grouse hunting in Michigan. I guarantee it.
Well, I think, Brett, what you're saying is you have to be open-minded. And I think really, when you look at this big picture of what grouse need, they need shelter, they need food, they need moisture. Where does that play into? So for example, and kind of going back to what Todd said and the importance of the timber industry to conservation and our mission. I met with some people today from the Warehouser plant in Grayling, Michigan, and talked about how we can help, or they can help us in that mission, because they need to feed that factory. And Todd's done a great job, and maybe he'll elaborate on our partnerships with the forest industry is part of our new business plan for rural economies, because we can use consulting foresters or local timber companies to make habitat, to sell their product, to get revenue, so we can do other non-commercial type of prescription. Teeing you up there, Todd. But so on my way back today, I kind of took a little serendipitous route. I just didn't take 72 to 131 to come back directly. And I saw two broods alongside the roads that I were on, both kind of two tracks. But one of them was nowhere near. It was kind of old growth pines, heavy brackens, and the broods were graveling on the two track. And you think, why are these birds here? And I stopped and moved through, and then 300 yards down the road, there's this wonderful tag alder edge along a creek bottom swamp deal. So I was 300 yards away from that, but those birds at that time weren't, if you'd have seen them right next to that alder thing, you would have thought, what's going on? Yeah, they should be here. But where they were, it was like there, but it was that close proximity. And I think, Brent, you hit on it on bast, acorns, scrub oaks, when there's a heavy acorn year, or oaks in close proximity to that sheltering cover of aspens, or berries within oaks with, again, close proximity. Those birds don't live their life in 8 to 15, 8 to 20-year-old aspens all their life. Where they make their nest is a different location than where they bud in January and February.
Right.
And we kind of look at it as all the birds are in aspens in October, and that's not always the case, especially in dry years in higher elevation aspens. If I was going to say one thing, and I'm pontificating here, if there's not sponginess to the soil, if there's not some give, there's not some bounce to where you're walking, you probably need to move on to find.
Are you saying,
That's
Glenn, that we need a little mud on our boots, maybe sometimes?
I wear wellies a bunch because I'm usually hunting in wet stuff.
Yeah. A friend of mine, he's hunted Virginia where my other home is. So he hunts in the George Washington National, which is rocky, hilly, they get their grouse where they get their grouse. Not that many. And he came up to the UP with me. And there was a year we were just driving around and we were doing exactly that. We were looking for aspen. And he's like, could we just stop and hunt? And we were just in a hardwood forest. I'm like, all right, you're right. And we got out there and we put up a couple nice grouse in the first 15 minutes of walking. And he looked at me with his eyes. He's like, told you. Oh, yeah, you gotta change it up. I mean, yeah, maybe end of winter, maybe early, but it's the hardest bird to really pinpoint. But there are guys that are way better than all of us. I know one of them.
For sure.
I talked to a guy today. I'm gonna hold his name back because if he's listening, he's gonna shoot me. I will say that he only lives a couple hours from me, and everybody knows where I live. His wife retired, so she's been running the dogs in the evening. And I don't want to get everybody going to Michigan, but she is averaging 18 flushes in an hour. That's not
Blue
normal.
Jays don't count, Ron. That's bullshit.
This guy.
She must be Wisconsin or Ohio.
You're right. It was over in the Superior Forest in Wisconsin. You're right. It was. Anyway, so I got a feeling.
A couple hours from you.
I got a feeling it was on top of everything else that RGS is doing. I think from talking to him today, sounds like the weather helped, and that's always a big help, right? I mean, I know Todd's a forester, but you're in the mix. And when we've got decent woods, but Michigan and the whole upper Midwest, we get some wonky springs sometimes. Right. And it sounds like we had a good spring. I'm just saying.
We had a good spring. Yeah, we did.
This was probably the best nesting spring we've had in the past three years.
That's exactly his words.
That's going to go. But Todd, talk to us a little bit about our partners in the forest industry and how important that is to the mission of conservation and RGS and AWS.
Yeah, sure, Glenn. It's vitally important. When you look at the mission and you look at what we're trying to advance with healthy forests and habitat and wedding those two together with partners, and you look at the conservation need to ramp things up, right? So the studies, the research, the science says we have an issue with habitat diversity, and what we need to do is ramp this up across landscapes. These impacts. And so having partnerships with the private landowners, with forest industry, with markets, that's what, enables that scale, right? Sustainable forestry is scaled grouse management, and it's good for grouse, and it's good for woodcock, and it's good for, golden wing warblers and blue wing warblers and chestnut sided warblers and everything else. And so, when you have viable markets, you have resilient communities, you have, in the Northeast here, you have success stories like Madison, Maine, where timber HP is just ramped up. There used to be a paper mill in Madison, small little rural town, I think over in like Androscoggin Valley, Western Maine. Paper mill shut down a few years ago, and what they've done is they've ramped that back up. They're making like wood-based insulation now. They're putting a couple hundred people to work, and it's using a couple 100,000 tons of wood a year across Western Maine. That's helping get the habitat work done. Everything's related, right? And so having kind of that life cycle from forest to communities and markets really helps us, with the scale of what we're trying to do. So I think it's vitally important. There's a lot of opportunities. It's not the only opportunity. We work obviously with the Forest Service. There's some amazing work that we're going and doing with the National Forest from the Great Lakes over to the Northeast and right down into the Southern Apps, like Nick B. Miller's work down there. There's state agency partners. So it takes the whole village. But yeah, that having the forest industry partnerships really helps us get the scale that we need to for the birds, for the forest. And it's a win-win situation. It's a situation where you can roll some of that back right into the habitat, right on the ground. And it helps us build capacity. It helps us get work done, helps us continue to spread the habitat mission across areas that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise.
You talk about that, and you mentioned wood and tonnage, and for a lot of the audience, and not trying to dumb down, but you're talking, whether it's board feet or tonnage or cords, which are forest industry standards. You may not have an idea of what that is, but you take the OSB plant in Grayling at Weyerhaeuser. Everybody has an idea of what a cord of wood kind of is in your mind, and they're going through 1,200 plus cords of wood each day there.
Wow.
So
that puts it in perspective.
That kind of puts it in perspective. And the interesting part of that is in to feed that plant, and I'm not just touting Weyerhaeuser because we spoke with them today, but looking to do some things with them. But out of that 1,200 cords, 70%, it's a very efficient factory. 70% of it gets turned into OSB. The other 30%, basically bark and moisture, gets recycled through the plant. So they're using actually the bark to do that. So it's a pretty efficient factory all the way through. But 1,200 cords a day.
The place is crazy. I got to tour that factory a few years ago. It was insane watching just a loader constantly just feed logs into one side, and out the other side comes these board, sheet after sheet of OSB. It was
and I don't have my notes in front of me. I wish I did, but I think it's from the time wood goes in to the time that it's turns into OSB is like 3.5 to 4 hours. I mean, it's quick. A very quick process that they have. So that's where we can work with the forest industry or our forest conservation directors like Todd or John Staggerwalt or Nick B. Miller in the Southern Apps can work to enhance their work and sustainability, but also while focusing on conservation.
Yeah, well said, Glenn. I mean, thanks for elaborating on that to bring it down to how to relate to that. And 1,200, that's a lot of cordage and a lot of wood, and people can, that's probably 100 truckloads a day, and so think about that impact across acres, and it's really scaling things up, right? So when we're trying to impact acres across landscapes, having sustainable forestry as one tool for the habitat mission, it really it can ramp things up in a hurry. So
Yeah, one thing, we've my buddies and I have talked a lot about in Michigan is, we're in kind of this weird cycle where, there wasn't a lot of cutting that went on. And then in the last, I don't know, 5-6 years, there's been a lot of cutting that's gone on. So we're kind of in this weird cycle where we've got a lot of stuff that's a bit too young and a lot of stuff that's a bit too old, and it's, I think Michigan's on the right track right now to have good, healthy forest for the next 100 years. I mean, and it's exciting. I mean, I truly believe that, the next 10 years of my grouse hunting career is going to be better than the last 10 years, the mid 2000, 2008 through 2015, we had phenomenal grouse hunting. I mean, even 16 was really good. We were averaging, 4 to 6 flushes of grouse an hour, and I don't count reflushes, and, you could go out every time and plan on killing a grouse, which, for, a lot of people, oh, you only killed one. People at grouse hunt know that, killing one is a big deal. When you kill 2, it's a really good day. When you kill 3, you're like, holy cow. And when you get those magical days where you kill 4 or 5, it's like, it's just unbelievable, And
that's when you go into retirement. You're done. You're done.
I just such a hate relationship with those little suckers. I love them, but I hate them. And I was talking to a buddy this morning. We were talking about, and I think dogs, my dogs point grouse differently than they point woodcock. I don't know what it is, if the dogs like them more or hate them or what. There's something about grouse that's different to bird dogs than what woodcock are or other things. I mean, Glenn, you run flushing dogs. I mean, what have you? Do you see do your dogs act differently when they're tracking a woodcock versus a grouse?
Oh, I think, I just put that Laurel dog down 3 weeks ago, and she was the most natural athletic dog that I've had from start to finish. And she was a hard flushing dog. She didn't have a soft flush in her genetics. But on grouse, it was exponentially harder than on woodcock. I mean, she could blow through a woodcock and she would up and watch it go. But a grouse, it was through the grouse, in the air, and when she got back to the ground, she was just amped up, roided up. I don't know. It was just, I think it's a little different. Maybe it's because she, didn't have the opportunities on grouse that she did on woodcock. I don't know, but I think, you see that certainly through my career just observations. Dogs will lock up on point on a woodcock. There's no question about it. But they lock up on a grouse, and that intensity is again exponentially
different. I don't know how to explain it and why it happens, but it's different.
And that's the magic of it. That really is the magic of October and early November.
Oh gosh, now I'm thinking about all my seasons. I'm not that good, but I can remember those good ones. I can't see that I've seen the difference. I think it's like one of those things that we think are different, because when you do get a grouse, to me getting a grouse is like a big game hunter seeing an 8-point buck. Now I know some people can get a lot more 8-point bucks than me, or a lot more grouse than me. I've never seen the intensity difference with pointing dogs, but there is definitely something different about it. I can't describe it, but I can tell you honestly that there are a lot of times when I thought it was a woodcock and it was a grouse, and I thought it was a grouse and it was a woodcock. So Maybe I'm just not that good.
I can tell a difference when my dog is on point. I mean, not always, but most times I can say the dog's pointing a grouse or the dog's pointing a woodcock. I can tell by the way the dog is just their stature, you know, and how they're standing there. I don't know what it is. It's just, you know, I guess it's like that famous Supreme Court justice said it. It's like, I don't know how to define pornography, but I can tell you when I see it. It's the same thing.
So Todd, tell us a little bit as we're going to talk about conservation here, the dynamic forest blocks that we're doing in the Northeast and in Pennsylvania, some of our stewardship programs that we have. I think people are, you know, when we talk about large landscapes and working with governmental entities, it's really easy to kind of throw all of those into one block. But with each governmental entity that we're working with, there's a little bit of different dynamics. I don't want to say in the game, but in the policies that we have to work with. Talk to us a little bit about that and how you work with these agencies and landowners.
Yeah, sure, Glenn. And I think, you know, we were talking earlier about the benefit of variety, right? So we were talking about like cover specifically around just thinking outside the box and looking a little bigger beyond what we might normally think of as covers. And so, you know, the thing about forests is they can provide a lot of benefits, right? So if you look at across like a big landscape, whether that's a wildlife management area and surrounding lands, or it's industry land that we've been talking about, when you look at kind of the big picture across landscapes, forests can provide so much, right? They provide all the benefits, the habitat benefits for grouse and woodcock and turkey and deer and everything else, all the other benefits that forests provide. And so kind of the wonderful thing about these forest block approaches, working with, you know, agencies and working with landowners, is that I think that the coolest thing that I think about it is that it really helps us ramp up the impact in a way that's bigger than if we were just working on one small piece at a time, right? So we, you know, habitat happens on an acre, right? The work happens on an acre, but just by working with some of these partners and planning, you know, we're working on an initiative in Massachusetts right now where we set up 3 forest blocks. And so we're working with a watershed company that manages their forest land for clean water. We're working with a club that's a hunting club, and then, you know, a nearby state forest. And so all of them have their, you know, their unique reasons for owning the forest land and how they manage it, but pulling it all together and, you know, kind of like looking at it holistically helps us make that impact larger than it would have been. And so that's kind of like how our approach has been. Like, we've got forest blocks that we're working on in Vermont and in New York. We funded those through National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, the NIFWIF, it's New England Rivers and Forest Fund. So that's a funding pool where we apply for a grant and then we match it. So the chapters that are doing events, like the New Hampshire chapter that just had their amazing banquet last week, or, you know, Maine chapters or the Green Mountain chapter, you know, they're raising money and then we're putting money and matching it with some of these funding pools to get into the forest block. So it's kind of a win-win situation where, you know, we can work with chapters in their backyards to do habitat work that's important to them, and they can lead on some of that stuff. We can align it with our agency partners and other partners, and we can get benefits that are bigger than, you know, if we were just doing one-off with individual, you know, this partner and this partner and this partner. So that's kind of like how our conservation model works now, and that's the beauty of it. It's like it allows us to kind of look at big blocks with partners. It allows us to get work done at scale, but also to be able to dial into important projects that our chapter members and leaders want to work on. And, you know, you can have a win-win situation there. So,
You know, I think if you don't mind elaborating a little bit on that, so folks understand, there's grant money or public money out there that we can tap into, but we have to have a match. Sometimes it's 7%, 10%, whatever the percentage is. But you know, you take a 10% grant match. Just in Michigan, we got one for 105,000 for the Pigeon River country. We had to come up with 10 grand, and then the state kicks in the balance for the type of the project. So when you're talking about the importance of chapters or events or local funding, that allows us to take that $10,000 instead of doing a $10,000 project to exponentially grow that project into whatever. Can you elaborate on that process?
Yeah, you just said it well, Glenn. I mean, that's it. So what it does is it allows us, the chapters are doing an amazing job. They crush it with fundraising at their banquets. We've got habitat funds that they provide, which we're grateful for. And so let's say, a chapter goes out and raises $5,000 and puts that in there, what we call drummer funds. We, with these grants, we can take and use that $5,000 to go get much more than that, right? So maybe we can get $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 or $100,000. But that's exactly it. In order to tap into that funding, we need those funds that we bring to the table. So what it comes down to is that gives us the skin in the game, right? So we need to have skin in the game to be able to tap into that money. And so that's where the importance is. You can't underscore it enough. It's like, we don't have that skin in the game, we can't get out there and access the funding. So that's what it helps us do. It helps us take, $10,000 and turn it into 100, or it takes, $50,000 and turn it into 200,000. All of that ends up being more acres on the ground, which is what I hear our members want, loud and clear.
Hey, Todd, I have a question. Maybe Glenn would answer it. Maybe you would answer it. What is the toughest nut to crack? Is it U.S. forest, state forest, private, or paper? Like, and my guess is it harder to talk the private landowner into it? But I could be 100% wrong. Is there a nut that's a little harder to crack?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Ronnie. I think it's going to vary a little bit from region to region. So we work, from the Great Lakes down to the Southern Alps and Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and the Northeast. And so, and across that landscape, you get different situations. But, it's definitely, we see it as, we're an enabler. Like if we're working with a national forest or a state agency, state forest, let's say in the Northeast, pick a state, Vermont, let's say, and they have great public lands. There's a need, they want to manage, they have good plans. They could just use a boost with capacity. So they just need more boots on the ground to get work done, right? So that's the situation on the public land side. That's what we see a lot is we just you go and ask, okay, what's the wall that's in front of you that we need to figure out how to get around? And maybe it's just, okay, we just need boots on the ground. So then what we try to do is we try to use Pittman Robertson funding that's funded through hunters and anglers, or through hunters rather, and shooting sports, and say, okay, can we create positions through matching Pittman Robertson funding to put those boots on the ground? So that's a pretty common conversation I hear with the agency side of things. It's just, hey, we just need more boots on the ground to get this work done. So that's kind of like how we can be an enabler and how we can help get that work done. And, on the private land side, in some situations, it's just that there's so many, in some areas, like if your land ownerships are small, if, you just have so many private landowners with so many different reasons for owning, maybe you just can't reach them all. And so it's like tapping into programs. It's like, okay, how can we, increase our capacity to help private land foresters? So I'd say all of those nuts can be hard to crack. And so it varies a little bit, but we try to approach it just figuring out, okay, where's the biggest need, and then in this particular region, and then how can we help get around that? That makes sense.
Does a program ever come into an area? It might be a softball question, and I'm going back to private landowners maybe, but where somebody in an area says, yeah, let's do it. And then the other people in the area kind of like, oh, that wasn't bad. And then do they get into it? You know what I mean? I could almost picture it being kind of a trickle down of eventually going like, man, we could sell some timber off our, like I did a timber sale here 2 years ago. Now I wish every neighbor would have done one, you know, and if I'd have talked to them, they would have like, wow, I could get some money for this stupid old oak tree sitting here, you know, the squirrels are living in.
Yeah, heck yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's right. And we see that, you know, RGS members are some of the best ambassadors for some of that stuff. Like I got to give a shout out to one of our national board members, Bruce Bennett, lives up in northern New York, in Malone, New York. And so he has some land up there that he manages, and it's like phenomenal cover, right? It's really good because of his management, because of his commitment to habitat. And so he does like tours, like, you know, people come up and they want to be like Bruce. And so like his neighbors look at this stuff and they're like, dang, man, that's working. There's birds there. He has a Malone hunt, third week of October every year, showcases that stuff. Absolutely. You know, having that demonstration of what can be, like I hear so many people in the Northeast say, you know, how good grouse and woodcock hunting was, you know, when they were growing up, and how good it was in Massachusetts, and how good it was in Vermont, and how good it was in New York. And so like what drives my passion is to put some of those good days ahead and not just the stories about the past, you know, and I think we're getting there.
Cool. God, the future seems rosy. I like it. I like it.
It's grousey, hopefully.
Grousey.
The goal.
The more miles you put on your boots, the luckier you're going to get. You know,
Yep.
I mean, it's just one of those things. It's, you know, I mean, you know, you get a lot of people asking, where should I go? Where should I go? It's like, you know, I mean, I've learned as much about grouse hunting about where not to hunt as where to hunt, you know, by just going out there and burning boot leather. And some of those days do suck. You know, there's nothing worse than walking all day long and flushing 3 or 4 grouse. You know, I mean, it's not fun, but you know, if you learn from it and move on, you're good to go, you know, and you learn where they're at, you learn where they're not at, et cetera, et cetera.
Damn, I still say the future just looks rosy.
I think it does too. I mean, I think that, you know, I mean, RGS has done a great job of, you know, promoting these big landscape type, you know, forest developments. I mean, that's the problem that, you know, I mean, Ron, you and I live in the Manistee National Forest, right? I mean, they've been doing 5 to 15 acre cuts for the last, you know, 40 years and not many in the last 10. And, you know, it's one thing if you've got 500 acres and you're doing 5, 10, you know, all these different little, you know, cuts in there, but they're doing 5 acres here, 10 acres, 20 miles. It's just, you know, it's like peeing on a brush fire. I mean, it's just not enough. I mean, they, you know, so these big landscape projects where they're cutting 100 acres, you know, this year, and then they're going to cut, you know, another 100 acres in 5 years. And, you know, they've got this, they seem to have the habitat stuff dialed in much better now than what they did 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, I think, you know, good grouse production 30, 40 years ago, is an accident, right? I mean, it was just, well, we're cutting all this forest, you know, and it created grouse habitat. Now it's like, you know, we're lucky that we've got foresters that understand that, all right, we need to leave a little pine stand over here. Let's leave that big giant oak tree because it's I mean, there, you know, it used to be, let's just go and just boom, you know, and it looked like a moon, you know, and now it's like you walk into a clear cut. It's not a clear cut. I mean, it's a cut, but there's, you know, there's habitats of, I mean, so even a cut that was done last year is going to have birds in it this year, you know, in the right spots. You know, I don't think that was the case 40 or 50 years ago. And I think that, you know, you watch in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we are going to have some phenomenal grouse hunting, but we need to be out there supporting Rough Grouse Society, American Woodcock Society, and doing that. It's not happening on accident. It's happening deliberately, because there are people that are working hard to promote this and spend lots of time and treasure to make sure that it's happening for us. So, get out there and support, your local conservation groups, join them, go to the habitat days. And, the habitat days, I've always told people, like, as a former president of our local chapter, the habitat days are more feel good than they are actually creating, landscape type, habitat for grouse. But I do think they're important too. I mean, it's getting people out there, getting people active, and having people see that, hey, we can do little things, but at the end of the day, the money being spent on getting these 100, 200 acre, these big cuts done is going to pay a lot more dividends than the habitat days. The habitat days are good for PR and for making us feel good, and it doesn't hurt at all, obviously, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. It's just blood, sweat, and tears from local habitat people. But the money being spent on these big landscape projects is money very well spent, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I've seen a lot of territory from all my years in Virginia to my years in Michigan, and I when I see just a big giant overgrown forest, I get a little sad, just like, man, there's nothing here.
Right. It's devoid of habitat. I mean,
yeah. They're forest deserts. But to pick up on what you said, and you mentioned the Manistee National Forest here in Western Michigan. Larry Partridge, who is a forest coordinator here in the state for RGS, spoke to him this afternoon, and today he was with the Forest Service on the Manistee, finalizing what's going to be 100-acre. You just threw it out there, 100-acre timber cut, aspen cut of basically 40 to 60-year-old aspen in the Manistee. Now, it's not one contiguous 100 acres. And I think sometimes we kind of lose the forest for the trees, and maybe Todd can jump into this, but it is 4 prescriptions within probably a mile radius. And they're not all 25 acres, but here and here and here. But we're starting to build that young forest mosaic. We're starting to build young habitat within side of old growth, and getting that habitat that we want so much, and that grouse and woodcock need, as well as tropical songbirds and everybody else. But that's really where it comes into play. And that's where our stewardship agreements, and Todd used the term boots on the ground in the case of Larry today, to get this to where I think shortly, if not by the end of the year, shortly after the first of the year, we're gonna submit this timber cut to the marketplace, and then we'll start regenerating that young growth aspen.
Yeah, that's great, Glenn. That's awesome work on Larry's part. And the wonderful thing is you nailed it. It's maybe there's 100 acres of total, cutting and prescriptions and silviculture forestry habitat work done. That 100 acres is enhancing all the area around it too, right? So this, like in this patchwork mosaic kind of approach, where you've got 100 acres that's resetting, that's good habitat, that's growing really well, but that's everything around that. When you position it like that, is benefiting from it too. So the impact is 100 acres there, plus the nearby 300 or 400 acres. So it's you get that lift up effect, so to speak.
That edge habitat, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, not to digress here too much, but that's one thing that rough grouse hunting, I think, can teach a lot of other, when you go out west or wherever you go, learning how to find edge habitat in the rough grouse woods will show you how to find birds, whether it's sharp tails, huns, blue grouse, sage grouse, bobwhite quail, you name it. Every game bird is an edge bird habitat. I mean, we always talk about that with rough grouse, but it's true with everything. Pheasants, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you can learn how to read rough grouse habitat, you will be a better bird hunter in general across every species out there. I mean, Glenn, Ron, you've traveled across the country, hunting, and it's true, isn't it? I mean, am I wrong?
Yeah.
I'll jump in here. Y'all know I talk with my hands, but you can be someplace in the plain states. I don't care, North, South Dakota, wherever. And it's a vast ripple, just sea of grass. But somewhere in that sea of grass, there's a little natural waterway or that edge place that you just talked about, Brett, or there's a little dip, or there's some sort of contour to that field, that edge that you're talking about. And whether birds go there because of moisture, they go there to get out of straight line winds, they go there for whatever reason, finding, like you said, those edge, that transition is key. It's not always as apparent as a coulee, where is running down through that we can see, or a grass waterway. But finding those edges, or that topographical difference, the contour, will always lead you to birds, at least I believe.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, we talk, Brent's out west, I'll be out west in a couple of weeks, and it is the same. When you look at like a monoculture, you got to find the part that's not the monoculture. So you got to find that part that's like, well, that looks different. Well, birds like the same thing. They like, whether it's shade or water or whatever it is, I wouldn't say that rough grouse hunting teaches you, but if you get into the minutia of it, knowing that don't only think one way, that's going to help you when you go, except for pheasants. Okay, pheasants suck. Everybody knows pheasants don't play by the rules. Okay. Pheasants are the absolute, I'm a rough grouse hunter. I live in Michigan, but I'm telling you what, if I can go to an area with a small density of pheasants and figure it out where they are and get one, yeah, that's my favorite. Sorry, I just had to digress on that one, but yeah. And I have no reason, like when you miss a pheasant, you have no reason except you're shooting. Okay. We can all blame grouse shots on fir trees and cedar thickets oh, I blew the branch off that tree. When you miss a pheasant, you missed, mister. You missed.
Do that.
Yeah.
That's why you just don't miss, Ron. I mean, that's the easy part.
Right. No,
Yeah,
we really
just don't miss it. You don't have to worry about it. All right. I don't think I've seen any other questions come through for Todd. Anyone have anything out there you're wondering about the Northeast specifically right now? Post it now and we'll add it to the list here. But Todd, do you have anything else you want to add to our?
Yeah, just appreciate it, Dave. Thanks for having me on. And anybody who wants to learn more about some of our habitat projects in the Northeast or any of our regions, you can just go to our website, roughgrousesociety.org. And you can, there's regional pages. So you want to see what's going on in Vermont or New York, you can go like that. You can check out the Mid-Atlantic or Southern Apps. So I appreciate that. Anybody wants to get in touch with me, you can reach out. I'm on social. Feel free to reach out. My contact info is on the website, and happy to talk about habitat projects here or set you up with anybody that's appropriate for your region if you're listening and interested.
Well, thanks for your insight. It was that's definitely on my bucket list to get out east. I've only been to Maine once, and actually I was up in the Millinocket area, did the 100-mile wilderness up there. And I remember I was kind of a newer grouse hunter at the time, and like flushing birds just along the Appalachian Trail was pretty cool. I was, ever since then I've kind of wondered about grouse hunting up there. So
yeah,
definitely like to get back up there. Like to get up there at some point.
Come on back anytime, Dave. Keep in touch if you're over this way.
It's on my list. I gotta get back there.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, I think we're ready. To move on. We gotta do our giveaway here. I don't know. How do we just want to have Ron pick a number, or we want to get creative with it?
Let's just have Ron pick a number, and then we'll have Ron do his trivia, and then we can sign off for the evening and wish everybody a happy grouse season. So we have to do next one of these.
So we had a pretty good response for this. We have 1,863 people registered for this giveaway. So it's a pretty good list. So Ron, we're going to need you to pick a number somewhere between 1 and 1,863.
Oh my God. I'm going to pick again. I'm going to pick one of my old.
You were in the, I'm going to say you were in the 500s last time. So maybe spread out from that a little bit.
I'm going to try to think of a more recent girlfriend's phone number. So that'd be
how recent is that?
Well, that'd be 38 years ago.
You've been married 39.
867-530-986. Yeah, 867.
867. We're going straight Jenny, huh?
Yeah.
All right, 867.
Just as a FYI to all the people that subscribed, if they're watching this tonight, I am out in Montana until the 16th or so of September. So your giveaway will not ship until I get back, because it is sitting in our warehouse and it's not at our distribution center. So you're gonna have to wait till I get back to ship it out, but we will get it to you ASAP and let you enjoy it. I love my Blackstone. We'll be doing some cooking out here in Montana. We'll put some stuff on YouTube for you guys to see, doing some tailgate lunches and all that fun stuff. So you just have to be a little patient.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna do some tailgate cooking. All right, 867 is Mark Sherlinsky. That's Mark Sherlinsky. His email address, I won't give his email address out, but I believe that's going to be the only Mark Sherlinsky on the list. So
Mark, if you are, name.
I knew three Mark Sherlinskys in Chicago.
Did you? You probably did, didn't you?
By the Marquette Park area of Chicago. There's a lot of Sherlinskys.
Well, I'll send Mark an email. Mark, if you're happen to be watching, go ahead and say hi. But congratulations, Mark. You'll be getting the Blackstone, and what else do we have in there? A Pyke gift card and dog bowl, the cover for it. Yeah, it should be a good package to get yourself cooking on the tailgate there. So thanks to everyone that entered. That was a good response to that giveaway, and hopefully we can do another one of those sometime soon. Just another quick site. If you are watching right now, click that subscribe button. We're going to try to keep more videos coming to YouTube here. Like I said, I'm headed out in the morning to meet Brent out there in Montana, and we're going to be hunting for the next 2 weeks. So we're going to hopefully have a lot of videos to put up, and you can kind of follow along our adventures this fall, starting this weekend, really. So hit that subscribe button.
I got to ask, Dave. So Brent hauled your dogs out west, and you're flying?
Yeah, yep. How's that work, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Hey,
I should have sent him out with my truck and let me fly out here.
What? Played my cards.
I actually had to make a few business stops on the way out here, so it worked out well. And luckily, Dave's dog is actually, believe it or not, if you know Dave, you'd be surprised at how well his dog has behaved.
Now,
he's got the good one. So
which dog of Dave's do you have?
Not that asshole that was up on Beaver Island that wouldn't go in the kennel.
Oh gosh, don't even. That's the best dog ever.
No,
Corbin was my best dog
it's a
ever.
beautiful pointer. That was pointing a magpie today while I was sitting on the chain gang.
She's a good girl. She's whiny. She likes to whine. That's
She's a
for
little
sure.
whiny, but she's been a good traveler. I got no complaints about that dog whatsoever. I would feed that dog. So
Oh, good.
let's
You
hope
are.
2 days we kill some birds over.
You had her for 4 days. Hopefully you're
That
feeding her.
dog?
I've been feeding her.
What'd you say, Ron?
How old is that dog?
She's 3.
Okay.
She's a Nancy Beth dog.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she's out of one of her pointer litters.
Nice.
Yeah,
Good.
got that crosswind Nastra on the sire side, and then Nancy Beth's dog on the dam side. So she's a good breeding. She's not. We got to turn her on with some birds out there this week. I think she knows what she's doing. She's been out west a couple times and hunted, but we need to dial her in. So hopefully it's good.
Get out there. Well, you're flying out tomorrow, and you just
I got to be at the airport at 6 a.m. So
I got to drive to Sacramento on Monday. So quit whining.
Sacramento, you driving?
I left Monday at 7 p.m. and I arrived in Bozeman today at about 3 p.m. So,
that's crazy.
Yeah. I've been driving for like 2.5 days. So you're getting
crazy.
Zero. Yeah.
Dave's going to fly out there.
That's right.
On a side note, if anybody's looking for a really killer pheasant lodge, I stopped at Cheyenne Ridge, the signature lodge at Cheyenne Ridge, which is just north of Pierre, South Dakota. And I tell you what, look that place up. If you guys are ever looking for a spot to go if you want to bring your wife out on a killer pheasant hunting trip, that would be a spot to go. I mean, just beautiful setting, beautiful lodging, unbelievable bar set up there. They got a 5-star Michelin cook there. Great bird dogs. So, I mean, if you're ever looking for a spot to go pheasant hunting, that would be a spot to go.
Oh, cool.
All right, Ron, let's hear some trivia.
Yeah, let's get some trivia, Ron.
I got just a couple or maybe 3, maybe 4. And I know you guys are not deep into the versatile dog world. So when I say versatile dog world, I'm talking about the dogs that all came from Europe. Now, granted, the setter and the pointer did come from, the UK. They were west of the Rhine River. But we're talking about the FC. Does everybody know what the FCI registry is? It's like the AKC of Europe and the rest of the world. Okay. It's called FCI. I want to see who can match the correct number to how many pointing dog breeds are recognized by the FCI. This is the Europe, for lack of a better term, it's the AKC of the rest of the world, from Australia to everywhere. We're just over here, but in the FCI, and I would say it, but it's like Federal International. I don't know how to say it, but I need you to give me how many recognized pointing breeds there are recognized with the FCI.
Okay. Post that in the comments over here. We'll give it a minute to let people chime in.
So, Ron, will you be able to list out those pointing breeds?
I could if I had to get my book out. If someone's going to challenge me. But
I don't think that this is going to affect the answers at all. But let's just start throwing out some of the names of, let's throw out the general names. We've got the Hungarian Vizsla, the Weimaraner, the English Pointer, the English Setter, the Gordon Setter, the Brittany.
Let me get to the back of this wonderful
the
book.
Griffon,
Are all the different setters
hair.
included in that? Yeah.
Well, no.
The German wire hair.
All right, here we go. There are breeds like Brock Darlange, Stickelhag,
Bolshevik,
Molkar Pointer, Slovakian Pointer, Brock Saint Germain, Saint Usse Spaniel, Brock Francais, Steberhund, Old Danish Pointer, Burgenese Pointer. So you already know there's more than 10. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
For
But-
sure.
I have the list right in front of me.
You get the
And-
the Munsterlanders.
So
Oh,
So
yeah,
in-
they're
in-
here.
in honor of the passing of Bob Barker, we'll go, if no one gets it dead on, we'll go closest without going over.
Sure,
So
sure, exactly. Exactly.
Bob Barker.
How great was Bob Barker in Happy Gilmore?
Oh my gosh. You see, he did another video with Adam Sandler too, more recently, fairly recently, where kind of the same situation popped up.
I want to be I want to be the Bob Barker of pointing dogs someday.
I would say you're pretty close to that.
You're right. You're right.
I mean, you're definitely up there.
Do we have anybody making a stab at it?
We've got a lot, and it's a pretty varied number. So I don't know if anyone has Googled it and actually has the right number, because I don't see any.
I didn't think about that.
I don't see any repeats in numbers. So
Well,
we've got, I don't know, we've got 20 answers here. So let's
right.
go ahead and
the answer,
tell us.
according to my friend Craig Koshik's book, Pointing Dogs, Volume 1, The Continentals, one of the best books you'll ever have on your coffee table. There are 34.
Wow.
34.
So
I'm going back up the list here. 34, 37, 36.
Ooh.
Man, I mean, 36 is probably the closest. I mean, they did go over.
Went over.
Next one would be, that's over. The next closest guess was 28.
I would give it to the
It's
over.
not as would you go? Yeah, I think unfortunately, poor Bob
number.
might get overridden on this. I think. But yeah, someone just guessed 34. Man, they nailed that on it. Good job, Jeff.
I think they cheated.
All right, so 36 was our closest, and that's
All right.
Jennifer Jane.
Good job,
Oh,
Jennifer.
wait, who said 31? Oh, someone did say 31. That is fairly close without going over. What do you think? Oh, closest
Let's
without
give
going
them both
over,
a
or
prize.
closest?
Let's give them both
Give
a
them
prize.
both a prize. All right,
Yeah,
we're
what the
gonna give 31 and 36 a prize. So, send me an email. I'll put my email in the comments. Shoot me an email to both BBK Fourth and Jennifer Jane. So we will send you out a Pyke gift card for getting close. 34. I actually kind of thought that was low.
All right.
I thought it was high. I'm surprised. I would have guessed like 22.
Well,
Oh, really?
I honestly, before I looked it up, I
was
thought
thinking
it
like
was
50.
19. But there is a lot of real small breeds all over Europe that just they hung in. I mean, I'm sure they dialed it in and they rebred and everything, but there is 34 of them. And there might be more as we talk, but we're not taking rebuttals on this. So for the next question, out of all the pointing breeds in the country, sorry, Glenn, I love cockers and spaniels, and
That's okay.
but out of all the pointing breeds, and this is worldwide. This isn't. Don't think of America. Don't think of FCI. Just like worldwide, the top 3 bred breeds worldwide. There's 3 of them that like literally stand. It's not even close to the other whatever breeds there are.
Does the pointing lab count?
No, no.
Wait, this is volume of breeding. Is that what you're asking? The top 3
Volume of
bred
breeding.
volume? Okay.
Yep. And in these 3 breeds, approximately, this is from Craig's old book, 15,000 yearly whelped. Okay. And this is
Between the 3.
but I need someone to name me, and whoever gets, there's 3 of them that stand out.
Okay, three breeds. So
So
If
pick
it-
3 breeds that you believe are the most widely distributed, widely whelped, widely used, widely whatever of all the pointing breeds in the world, which is the same thing as, basically the 34. I mean, there might be something like there might be a pointing chow chow. I don't know about that. So don't throw that one at me. Or a pointing pit bull. I that's not my concern. But these are all three breeds that all of us on this screen should know. And I want to know
they're not names we don't know how to pronounce.
No,
what you're saying.
Okay. Every one of them you guys have seen, probably hunted over.
Okay.
I need someone to come up with the three most produced breeds. Let's see what anybody comes up with.
Bro, Brent put his guess in our private chat here.
Okay.
I mean, I think your first one's a for sure, Brent.
Yeah.
Mhm. Definitely.
Because that's pretty much in everyone's guess up here.
Well, and I'm not going to comment. I want to be trivia. I don't want to give a clue.
I tell you what, Ron, since I think everybody's going to get the first, why don't you just throw out a teaser for the number one or one of
Well, I would say I didn't, the graph chart I looked at, I couldn't discern.
Okay.
But GSP is definitely
number one.
Definitely up there. Yeah.
Below,
I mean, pretty much everyone here has GSP in their guess. So
yeah.
I think
give
that's
me the other two.
The other two, because I mean that's
most bred dogs across the globe.
We got quite a few answers coming in here. GSPs and people who don't know how to type are putting gap. So I understand what they're saying. That's because I don't know how to type either.
Can we guess or no?
Yeah, throw it in the comments, Glenn.
Comments.
In our private chat here.
Okay.
Brent put his down in there. We'll see. I mean, I think I know what two are. I'm trying to think of what the third would be.
We got enough people.
I think they've kind of slowed down here. I think we've got quite a few guesses here. So, and GSP is definitely someone actually put GSP twice. So I don't think that counts.
We're probably in Amish country.
They just bred their GSP to a GSP, and they were probably brother and sister to begin with. So, okay. Garrett Johnson, autocorrect sucks. Yes, it does. Okay. All right. Ron, give us the three, and then I'm gonna have to kind of do some reading through all these to find the person that got it first.
I don't know how you're gonna get who got it first.
So I guess if no one gets all three, we'll have to figure it out. But let's hear them, and then we'll go with the person that got the first person down the list to get them.
And I hate to say this, but Pyke Gear might win this. GSP, Brittany, and Weimaraner.
Wow. Wow, Brent.
Yeah.
Brent in our private chat got that right on the nose.
Did anybody else get it?
I'll take the gift card, baby.
Yeah, you will. So GSP, Weim, and Brett. All right, I'm gonna have to do some reading here.
Yeah.
GSP, Weim, Brett, Brittany. There's GSP, Weim, and Brett. There's not many people guessed Weimaraner, so I think that's gonna be the hiccup.
Yeah, and it's crazy, but that is.
So we have a couple people that said GSP Brittany, but they didn't get the Weim.
So
Todd's watching this so she can see that I'm so good at this.
So Todd's thinking. Todd Waldron's looking at his first dog coming up here. He's like, I'm not picking any of these three.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm bucking that whole trend.
Right. Don't be trendy. Don't be trendy.
So I can't. It's hard to believe Wyme is the number one. I feel like there's fewer of
It's,
those than like setters.
well, you got to think globally though.
Yeah, I guess I don't see
Hmm.
what people are doing around the world. So we don't have anyone that got all three.
Oh my
Except for
God.
me, Dave.
Except for you and the smart Alex who answer after we've said the answer. So so do we just give it to the first one? I got GSP and Brittany. Or we just no, there's no winner.
I don't
on
think
this
you
one.
no. We're going to double the prize for the next one of these things.
There you
That's what
go.
we're going to do.
Oh, we're going to double the prize for the next
Yeah,
one.
it's like Mega Millions, baby. We're going to roll that baby over.
Gonna roll it over to a bigger
To our
prize.
next giveaway. So
Yeah.
we're saying no one gets it this time except Brent. He's got
Except
I'll send
me,
Brent
yeah.
his gift card. It'll be in the mail.
Okay, here's a little history. The National Field Trial at the Ames Plantation in Grand Junction, Tennessee. Anybody in this country or other countries has either read about it. You're talking the premier dogs. Even though, people would say, oh yeah, well, they're trial dogs. These dogs hunt. You don't go out for 3 hours hard charging with a brace mate and say that you can't hunt. Okay. I don't buy that. I never have bought that. And the little history, because Brent's got a setter and we know everybody loves setters. There's a setter out there named Shadow Oak Bow that took
Everyone
this
knows.
title twice in the last decade, less than the last decade. But there's a dog named Dunn's Fearless Bud. And this dog was the last dog that won this trial on all wild quail before the Ames Plantation had to start supplementing. But Ken, this is tying into forestry and habitat. You can only keep quail or pheasants or grouse or woodcock in good cover, in good habitat forestry. What year was the last year that a dog won the national field trial at the Ames Plantation on all wild quail?
All right, restate that question again, Ron.
The field trial has been run since the late 1800s. It's or early 1900s. It's over 100 years old. What year was the last field trial held that everything was run on wild quail?
Oh, geez.
What
Oh, man.
year?
Wow, the answers are pouring in quickly here.
The last year that
They
all
hunted on
wild,
wild quail.
and I will tell you, I was down back in the day. There was a sporting goods store that was called Dunn's. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it's called Dunn's Sporting Goods. Wilson Dunn was one of the patriarchs of the field trial world down there. And he had a little field trial store when the people would come down there for once a year on the Ames Plantation.
Ron's getting interrupted here.
Dogs, quiet. So, well, we just had a little interruption here, but so that field trial has been run for over 100 years in Grand Junction, Tennessee. For all of us history, it was run on wild quail, but at some point they had to supplement quail for this trial. The last dog that ran on wild quail was Wilson Dunn's Fearless Bud. What year was the last year they ran on all wild quail? There's your question.
Okay. Well, we got quite a few answers here. And they've kind of slowed down. So I'm going to cut it right now.
Okay.
I'll cut it right there. So I know who all the cheaters are after that. And okay. Okay, Ron, give it to us. I got quite a few here. So
1990.
19. Wow.
If you guys split the difference, we'd win.
The first person to respond was 1990.
Really?
Keith Mark, 1990. Yep, first answer.
Good job,
Yep.
Keith.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Now, to be historic, there are still a couple trials. The one at Gladwin, that's all run on wild birds, right? And I think there's one in Pennsylvania that might be, and maybe Minnesota. I'm not sure, but
Well,
when it-
All
all
the grouse and woodcock.
all the grouse and
championships.
woodcock trials are run on wild birds.
They run some
because
sharp
you-
tail and prairie chicken championships too.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But when
Poultry science can't
when it comes to
duplicate
quail,
grouse and woodcock.
but I think that's kind of a testament to, what we're talking about with forestry and management. Quail are no different than grouse or sage grouse, anything. When the habitat overgrows and degrades, it just won't hold. It won't hold the birds. And I think maybe that's the God. Do I sound poetic? Maybe that's the lesson, right? We have to keep this going. What it doesn't matter what bird you hunt. You gotta kind of step back and say, we need to find that habitat. We need to find that bird. We need to find that flora and fauna that just, perpetuates the species. So
But
there.
1990
You're
1990 is
watching this
pretty late.
tonight. If you're not an RGS or AWS member, please
Oh,
join. Get your friends to join. If you enjoy bird hunting, join. I mean, it's important. It's your conservation dollars that you spend on their membership are as important as your number of being a part of this. The more we can say we've got 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,000 people that are part of this organization, the more clout we have in Washington, DC, Lansing, Concord, wherever you're at, whatever state you're in, the more members we have, the more clout we're going to have, and just join, spend the $35. There's a big membership drive coming up, and you can get this cool t-shirt like Glenn and I are, Ron and I are sporting right now, the Pyke Gear logo. Todd's sporting it too. We're giving away some free gift cards to go along with the folks that are doing this. So, we're doing our part to make sure that people are joining, and we're giving back. So join. Don't be cheapskates, as Ron would say.
I would also say, even though we're probably preaching to the choir on this, YouTube, because these are people that know us and know Pyke and know RGS. But if there's just one of them out there that's just kind of poking around, and I've said this so many times on my podcast, if you hunt a wild bird in this country, you owe it to the habitat organization that supports that bird in that habitat.
100%.
And when Ben Jones told me that it's like 1% of grouse hunters are RGS members, I was just, I was in shock. I was like, come on, it's got to be 20%. And I know probably everybody listening to here is of like mind, and they're members of a lot of organizations. But if one of you are listening that just got there by some accident, if you're not a member of the organization that supports the bird you hunt, I'll key scratch your car and I'll flatten your tires. Sorry.
And Ron's threatening people.
That's right. And I can still take most of you on easy.
Oh, wow. Wow.
The Karate Kid.
Jiu-jitsu, kung fu.
That's right.
All right. I think anyone else have anything to add? I think we're at an hour and 40. So we've been carrying this conversation on for a while, which is good. I mean,
We're having fun.
heard some good stuff. Yeah, it's good to have fun and get some people involved. So,
Yeah.
You guys have anything else to add?
I just
before
want to thank everybody for attending. We will be having a membership drive, as Brent said, coming up in September, with some incentives there. Again, to reiterate what Todd said, if you're interested in activities, whether they're fundraising events or habitat events, please look at our website, roughgrousesociety.org or org. There's regional pages that you can see everything that we're doing from the southern apps to the Northeast through both the eastern and the western Great Lakes states. If you want to reach out to Todd or myself or anybody on the team, just use our first name, first initial of our last name at rgs.org. We'll be glad to get back with you. But want to thank Pyke for their continued support as being a corporate sponsor and tag teaming with us on these events. Dave, for your organization and behind the scenes work. So Ron, as always, thank you.
A pleasure
I will
having
ask
Ron.
Brent and Dave if Dave can get me the audio file, I'll put this out as a podcast. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, a Zoom room is not really good for podcasts, but I think there was a lot of good information in this from Todd, especially, that I think we could just put that out and some more people hear this that weren't able to attend.
Yep. I will try to
That'd
pull
be
that
great.
audio
Thanks,
off of
Ron.
this. Yep.
Thank you, Ron.
Well,
I
thank
love
you
you guys. I love you
for joining
girls.
us. Good luck this season. Be safe out there and have fun. And I appreciate
Yeah.
everybody's support for that has been supportive of Pyke Gear and of RGS and AWS over the years. We appreciate all your support.
Yep. Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Ron and Glenn. And yeah, good luck this season. We'll try to keep in touch with everyone. And like I said, check back, watch our stuff. We're going to be posting a lot of stuff hopefully in the next couple weeks here from the field. So it's good to get the season underway. It's well overdue. So
All right.
Girls.
Fun, boys. Be
I think
safe.
with that.